Hello. Yes, it's time for another live gardening show. I am really excited. It's super nice weather. So, yes, I am outside again. I am in my garden. And welcome to you to the episode number 13 of Spilling the Green Beans, my weekly live gardening show where I share with you my green secrets to inspire you to start growing your own vegetables. Well, with this weather, it's lovely to be outside, and I am your host, Emily, creator of Easy Urban Gardening, the system for growing your own vegetables on a balcony or terrace in town. Thank you for spending time with me today when I talk about my indoors nursery. Growing vegetables can seem daunting and hard work, but I share with you my green secrets, the most crucial techniques to make it fun and easy, and you'll also learn how to take advantage of the broad health benefits of gardening, and of course, how to cook delicious meals with your own vegetables. I am spilling the green beans. But before we dive in today, I want to share with you that I am starting my new course again, Your Urban Paradise, on Monday, the 12th of April. It's all about how to grow vegetables in town, but of course in an easy and fun way. You will design, build, plan, and sow your garden in 4 weeks. And to get more information or to join, follow the link in the show notes. Last week, I spoke about radishes, when to sow them, how to grow them, and above all, how to eat them. If you are a radish fan and you missed that episode, you can, of course, watch it back on my YouTube channel. Today, we are back to real hardcore gardening again, as I'll share with you how to grow summer vegetables that you have to start indoors because they can't go into your garden before the end of May. Let's first look at which vegetables we're actually talking about. I am talking about all the vegetables and herbs that are extremely vulnerable in cold temperatures. They are real warmth lovers. So I'm talking about tomatoes, zucchinis, cucumbers, pumpkins, squash, basil, peppers, sweet and spicy, and aubergine. These summer vegetables won't thrive as long as temperatures are below 15 degrees Celsius, which is around 50 Fahrenheit. They really like it nice and warm. And not just one day like it is here today. Today would be a perfect day for a summer vegetable, but night temperatures are still too cold. Risk for a cold spell is way too big. So they like it nice and warm day and night. And many of them aren't quick growers. They need quite a lot of time before they start producing fruits. So those two combinations are kind of tricky if you are in a climate that resembles pretty much anywhere north of the Alps in Europe. So you need to start growing them earlier in the year, which due to the temperatures in most areas, you can't do outdoors. So therefore, the only option to get these vegetables is starting them indoors between February and April. Or, of course, you can buy plants at your local garden center in May and then end of May plant them directly outdoors. But we easy urban gardeners try to grow as much as possible from seeds, and therefore we sow our peppers and aubergines in February, our tomatoes in March or really early beginning of April, and zucchinis, cucumbers, pumpkins, and squash in April. And to do that, you have to create a little temporary indoors nursery. So many gardeners will tell you that you need all sorts of fancy equipment to grow plants indoors, like special kind of like cabinets where the temperature is always constant, extra lights, extra whatever. Honestly, I am doing it now for years without any of those. I have no extra lights. I have no extra heating. I don't heat up the room extra. I don't have fancy equipments, boxes, greenhouses, whatever. I just make sure I do not start too early. And I have my plants really next to the window without the direct sunlight on them to prevent them from burning. So let me tell you how I work. First of all, of course, I use my own soil mixture, and then I add a bit more vermiculite to that. So I'll work with half Easy Urban Gardening soil mixture and half coarse vermiculite, which I mix. And that is kind of like the pre-sowing or indoor sowing mixture that I use. You can also germinate the seeds in pure, fine vermiculite, which is easier to get because every decent garden center does actually sell it. You just have to transplant the seedlings a bit quicker because, of course, the vermiculite doesn't have the nutritions that a soil mixture does. But it works perfectly fine. I sometimes do even both. I discovered that sometimes aubergine germinates easier when I do it in pure vermiculite instead of in a soil mixture. On the contrary, peppers and tomatoes become way nicer and stronger plants when I sow them in the soil mixture instead of in pure vermiculite. So second, you need containers. I use a plastic container without any holes in the bottom and with a lid. But of course, you can use sowing trays, you can use little plant pots, you can use the leftover little containers of whatever plants you bought last year or previous years in the garden center. You can also use these fancy little pots made out of paper or other organic material. Personally, I do not use the latter ones, as they are actually supposed, or you are actually supposed to then transplant your seedling, including that pot, into a bigger pot and into a bigger pot again if necessary, and then in the end into your garden. My experience though is that my plants didn't grow as easy and quick when I transplant them with those pots. And I even find the pots back in my garden after I take out the plants 4 or 5 months later. So my experience was they didn't decompose as well as I kind of like expected, or they made me believe. So I switched to transplanting my little seedlings from pot to pot to pot to pot, and then take off the pot and just have them with the normal soil and roots and plant them in my garden. So now you have the soil mixture and you have a container, you're ready to sow. Make sure the soil is nice moist without being wet, but it does need to contain quite some moisture because you won't water your seedlings or your seeds until after they sprouted. So you put 2 or 4 seeds on top of the soil, depending a little bit on how big your container is, of course. If you use a sowing tray, you can maybe only put 1 per little hole, but otherwise you can maybe put 2 or 4 if the container is a little bit bigger. And then you sprinkle about 0.5 centimeter of soil over them. Then you close the container with either a lid or a little piece of cling film. And now you wait for your seedlings to pop up. Make sure you have them in a nice warm place, like room temperature. So don't put them like in a cooler guest room. yet, but put them in like your living room or wherever it is like nice temperature, or bathroom if you have a really nice light one. But put it somewhere where it's nice and warm, like 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. So then once they sprout and they start to grow a little bit, of course, there won't be any room left. So you would take off the lid or the cling film. And then when they are about 4 to 5 centimeters tall, so they're still tiny, but still, nevertheless, you plant them into a bigger pot. And this is best done using Okay. I'm so sorry. I somehow lost a connection, but I'm going to go back a little bit and hope that it is okay. So we talked about the soil mixture that you need, and we talked about the containers. And now that you have those two ingredients, kind of to say, we are ready to sow. So make sure that you make the soil nicely moist without it being really wet. But you do need the moisture because you won't water your seeds until after they sprouted again. So you will leave the seeds there and they will just do their own job. You won't interfere. But of course, for that, they do need the water. If you are working with 100% fine vermiculite, you will kind of like pour the vermiculite in a sieve, soak it in a boil with water until it changes color from like lightish sandish color to a bit darker grayish color, and then you use that. So you put 2 to 4 seeds on top of the soil, or the vermiculite, doesn't really matter. And it depends a little bit on how big your container is. In a sowing tray, you might want to put 1 seed per hole, but in a pot or a container, you can put in 2 to 4 seeds on top of the soil, and then you sprinkle about 0.5 centimeter of soil over them, and then you cover the container. So you either put the lid on, or you put a little bit of cling film over it, and you put it in a place where it is nice and warm, kind of like a constant, comfortable room temperature. So don't put it in the cool guest room, but maybe in the lounge or on your dining table or somewhere where it's kind of like constant 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. That's what they like. So once they are about 4 to 5 centimeters tall, you have to transplant them into a bigger pot. Of course, in between, you might have removed the lid or the cling film if they become too tall, if you don't have the 4 to 5 centimeter space. But once your plants are 4 to 5 centimeters tall, you take a spoon. That's the easiest way. You take a spoon and you carefully spoon them out of the tray or the container into the next container. Don't put them immediately in a container that big, because of course, remember, you have to keep them indoors until the end of May. So you might have to be a little bit economic with your space. So just put them in a container roughly double the size as what you removed them from. And you repeat the transplanting over the next time, every time your plant grows too big for the pot it's in. So this might be 3 or 4 times. If you start off with a sowing tray or tiny containers, which is fine. I do that myself too. But then you might have to transplant them 4 times into slightly bigger containers. So important during this whole period of transplanting your seedling, or actually from sowing your seedlings, but definitely from as soon as the seedlings pop up until the time that you can bring your plants outdoors, which is towards the end of May in most areas, especially definitely in Europe. You have to take care that your seedlings get enough light. So place them near the window, but don't choose a window where the sun is directly shining on, because of course it is like with a magnifying glass. The sun rays really heat up through the glass, and then you have the risk of burning the leaves of your transplants. It can also be not only important but also necessary to turn the pot regularly so that your plant doesn't grow like to one side, kind of like in the search to light. So maybe in that case you have to close them a little bit you have to place them a little bit closer to the window, and you might want to turn them regularly. Then, when you have been taking good care of your plant until half May, it is time to harden it by bringing it outside during the day. You have to remember that your plant has been grown up in a very protected area. It does not know what direct sunlight is. It does know what a bee is. It does know what wind is. It does know what a bird flapping by is or flying by is. So it has no clue about all the elements that it has to get used to grow and thrive outdoors. So you bring it outside on a day that the temperature is nice and comfortable, above 15 degrees, and you put it in still a little bit protected area for a short period of time. You bring it back indoors, and then every day you do that a little bit longer, but still having it indoors for the night for about a week. And then when temperatures are guaranteed over 15 Celsius and really don't drop below 10 degrees Celsius overnight anymore, you can plant it into your garden. Take a good look, because if you are in an area like further north in Europe where you can still have these cold spells early June, or when you are living on an altitude in Switzerland, higher than I am, you can have those cold spells as well. So keep an eye on the weather forecast when you start hardening your vegetables towards planning your vegetables to go outdoors in your garden, and maybe give them a little bit extra protection for that 1 or 2 single nights. Okay, then I want to tell you a little bit about indoor nurturing and how mine is. You have to go and have a look around and decide where you could grow your plants. Mine are in front of the guest room window. And actually, I have the dog's travel box in front of the window, and on top of that are my plants. And then also on top of the dog's box in the lounge, and at one side, like towards the end of May, it's roughly half of our dining table is indoor nursery as well. So I have them everywhere a little bit, where I know that it's a good window. They have lots of light, no direct sunlight, and that is absolutely perfect. I mean, so far all my seedlings always succeed, and I always sow a little bit more than I have planned to plant in my garden. So if my plan says I want to have 2 cherry tomatoes, I will always start growing 4. And the same goes if I want 1 zucchini, I will grow 2. If I want 4 cucumbers, I will grow 6 or maybe even 7. So I always do sow a few more, because it's totally normal, and it's actually also totally fine if 1 or 2 won't make this journey, because it's quite an adventure for a plant to grow up indoors, and it's not the easiest thing to do, but it's very doable. So give it a try. You can still sow tomatoes now, end of March. So give it until this weekend if you still want to sow tomatoes. Otherwise, you have to go to your local garden center in May and buy the small plants. And then zucchini, cucumber, pumpkins, and squash can still be sown over the next 2 weeks, so until half April. So that is how my indoor nursery works, how the whole process of transplanting and growing summer vegetables works. And do you feel like you could do with a bit more help? You can join my beginner's course, Your Urban Paradise, or my more advanced course, Your Summer and Autumn Garden Now. Doors are open. We start again halfway of April after Easter, and the links to more information, both links for more information, are in the show notes. So thank you for spending time with me in the garden, and I hope to meet you in your garden soon. Did you enjoy this episode of Spilling the Green Beans? Then please subscribe, share, and give a review so more people can enjoy the show. I see you in next week's episode when I talk about gardening routine. Very, very crucial to maintain your easy urban garden in just 5 minutes per day. Your gardening routine is crucial to that, because otherwise you might not be as successful as you can be. So looking forward to see you next week. For now, enjoy the beautiful weather. At least I hope it's as beautiful where you are as it is here. And keep gardening. See you. Bye.